Time being 6 o'clock, I'll go ahead and bring this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Don?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
Dan?
Here. Quorum present. All right, before we begin, we've had another one of our disasters go through Yankton County, and I just think this is a good opportunity for us to just thank all of those individuals who had a part in it. I'd like to specifically thank our emergency management and our Red Cross highway superintendents, and really the whole highway department, our sheriff, Yankton police, and township officials, and so many others. Our community came together yet again, and we saved people's lives. There was some property damaged, but property can be replaced. I saw so much community coming together when we were up in Odessa Township. We saw those individuals sandbagging and saving that church, and going down to the highway shop. We had perfect strangers getting together and filling sandbags to help people's houses, and they didn't even know where they were. And it just makes me so proud that we come together, and we're really like a family. We don't get along all the time, but when we need each other, we all come together and we're there. So I know I'm missing some people, but I just thought I had to say that, so thank you. All right, do any of the commissioners have any reason to abstain for a financial or non-financial conflict of interest?
I do not.
Gary?
No.
I do. I don't feel it's any reason to abstain, but I will declare item 12, the discussion that's involving an uncle by marriage. So
Okay.
I guess I don't feel it's a conflict. But
Does anyone on the
anybody
board
does.
feel that would be a conflict? I don't feel so.
No.
Okay. All right. And none for me as well. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there any corrections at this time? Entertain a motion? Yes.
Additions?
I'm not going to add anything for what do you got, Don?
I would like for Rob to address the issue that was brought up in the public comment last time about conflicts of
Okay.
interest.
Let's add it for the next agenda, because we're told we're supposed to be adding things onto the agenda, so if somebody wants to come in, so can we add that to
Sure.
the meeting next time? Okay.
And sorry,
Yes.
that I believe that emergency mental illness board appointment will be, if we can take that off too. Sorry, Dan.
What item number is that?
That's under 610. That's the last note under 610, right above the 615, declare a county emergency.
Okay.
Just right above that.
We'll
I think
delete
they're
that
going to
off.
come at a different date.
Okay.
They couldn't get it figured out quick enough. Sorry.
All right, entertain a motion with the correction.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion pass.
Keep it up, share with them.
Next item on the agenda, item number 5, approval of the minutes from the September 3rd, 2019 commission meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 6, public comment. Okay, Mr. Dale Node. Come on up, sir. State your name for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Dale Node, 44317 303rd Street, Mission Hill, South Dakota. Of course, with all the flooding, you take alternative roads, and I just happened to go by one of the CAFOs out there. And This was within 24 hours ago, and this is what I heard. They're either hungry, need water, or hot. My pigs never do this. Something's wrong with that. You should not hear pigs 200 feet away, screaming, fighting. So I just think that's wrong. And I think that, you know, if you're gonna put in hog barns, and you need to take care of them, you need to take care of the land, you need to take care of the pigs, because this is just wrong.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a public comment? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Next item on the agenda, item number 7, claims. Looking over claims on page 3, I'd like to point out, I believe there's $29,902.09 in court costs. So that we have to pay. That would have saved, if that money could have got rid of all the budgetary issues that we had, that $29,000, that's an amount we have no control over and we have to pay. So just point that out. Any other comments? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion pass. Next item, pooled cash treasurer's report. Entertain a motion.
Move approval of the treasurer's report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion pass. Next item on the agenda, request Native American / Columbus Day off. And Karen, this is a holiday that is normally given?
No, we usually take that holiday
Okay.
for the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so, and there was some discussion about a lot of state offices
Yeah,
take
take that
this.
day off,
And
yeah.
I know we're trying to move more to be in compliance with the state. The feedback I've gotten is some of our offices that talk to the state, if we're here and they're not, it really doesn't make sense for them to be here. So I guess I'd be in favor of it. What does the board think?
What's the city do?
Is it in addition to
In
the?
addition to the
Yes.
day after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
In addition to.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what the city does?
No.
By chance?
I know talking with Patty this is what a lot of the state does. And this is something that when we redo the handbook, that they would like that in there. And then once it's in the handbook, we don't have to approve these every year, so. Donna, did you approve these in the past, or do you recall?
Don't recall.
Okay.
Don't really recall ever seeing it.
You know,
Yeah, I don't think we've ever asked for Columbus Day in the
well, what does
So
the
is
board
this-
feel?
Are we requesting 2 days off? Or is that the same day?
past. That's the same day. It's just that South Dakota calls it Native American Day instead of Columbus Day.
Is it a federal holiday too then?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
Banks aren't even open then.
yeah. You know, I think this is an example where we can show our employees, how much we appreciate them and their hard work, and I guess I would be in favor of it, but I'm willing to go with what the board wants, so I would entertain a motion, I guess, if there's no more discussion, so.
Move approval to give Native American Day off.
Is there a second? I will second that. A motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, approve county employee flu shots. I didn't see the nurse isn't here. Right? And this is just $45 to give all our employees a flu shot. Is it mandatory or it's not
No,
mandatory,
it's not.
but it's a good idea? Okay.
We've done it every year.
Okay, so, all right, is there any discussion on that? Entertain a motion?
Move approval of flu shots for county employees.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I guess I do have clarification. Is that for employees or families as well?
Just
Just
employees.
Okay.
You can get your flu shot, Joe.
I have to.
Your wife's a nurse.
I
She's gonna
have
make
to.
you do it. All right. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, approve Lewis and Clark West Road District.
And it passed by the
Yep.
road district.
Okay, we have another road district created on, what is it, Lewis and Clark West Road District? That's out in the lake area, correct?
I'm assuming.
I believe so.
So,
Do you, Karen, do you have more than what we have
no.
on here?
Is this what is on in the
Yeah.
packet? Yeah.
I believe a couple meetings ago.
I can go get the folder if you want to see more stuff.
As long as there's more than a very generic form with 9 yeses tallied, with no signatures or any,
I have the page that
Okay.
they all voted on.
okay,
That's in the file. Yeah.
okay.
This is the
I'm
election
okay with
Patty
that.
sat at.
Yeah.
right?
It looked pretty,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Well, what do you want to wait till next meeting? to
I'm
approve
okay
this?
as long as we have something more than what this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess I didn't think about getting all that in the packet.
okay. Is there any other discussion on this? Entertain a motion.
I move approval of the Lewis and Clark West Road District.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 8, declare a county emergency. Mr. Schurslick. Before you get started, everybody, you can still go up there. Mr. Schurslick, what was the award that you were awarded again?
I don't remember.
Aaron, could you tell us, come on up here, and would you tell us about the award he won?
It was the achievement award.
The achievement one, and that was for the disaster in March?
For the disaster in March.
Okay.
He was the only EHAM selected.
Okay. So before we get on the disaster, let's give Mr. Schurslick and his department a round of applause. And I ask you to make the disaster stop if you can. So,
Okay,
all right.
we'll work on that. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm here today for a couple reasons. We'll give you a little bit of an update of what's going on. But first, I'm in front of you tonight. I'm asking you guys to declare or pass a resolution declaring an emergency for Yankton County. I gave out to you, or Karen, or some of the girls at the office. Rod drew this up here for us. Resolution declaring an emergency James River flooding fall 2019. Whereas the South Dakota James River Basin has received unprecedented above normal precipitation in September 2019, resulting in historic flooding causing severe damage to property and the rest of the Yankton County resident lives. And whereas the Yankton County is evaluate all available resources needed to mitigate potential damage in critical infrastructure and to assure life safety for the residents of Yankton County, and has found that all resources have been expended as early as September 18th, 2019. Whereas the total cost of repairs and improvements have yet not been fully estimated, but they are going to exceed what local resources are available to provide and to where, I should have let you guys just read it yourselves.
You're doing fine.
Whereas the resulting damage and destruction will endanger and threaten the health, and safety, and welfare of the public and the financial stability of the local governing units and the utility companies, power companies generally. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of the Yankton County Commissioners does hereby declare and an emergency due to the flooding of the James River, Yankton, South Dakota, this date, well, and so on and so forth. So I'm here to ask you to do this. We don't right now have any preliminary numbers. We've started collecting a few. You know, in all honesty, you know, just we had 3 days at the Emergency Operations Center. Mike's crew's been out, you know, humping, putting up signs everywhere, all that stuff. I mean, labor hours are going to come up, but for us to reach the threshold, if you remember, in the spring was $84,000. We still need to meet that, but the water hasn't gone down yet. I talked with the state. They agree that we need to declare now. We can start adding them up because I really foresee them trying again, if you will. And even if we don't make a public the PA or the public assistance, we could very well qualify for the IA or the individual assistance. And we need to make sure that we have our declaration in place and start looking at that.
Can you give everybody who's watching just an overview of, you know, the number of homes damaged and, you know, just a few of those things and the people, the safety, what to do if when people are watching at home, the 211 and all that?
Yeah, this is since the 6th of September, if you will, when we all know that we got the big rains Wednesday and Thursday up north. And they say what's uphill comes downhill, and it sure did. Currently right now, we're asking everybody that has had damage on property or their homes or farms or whatever, they need to call the 211. Basically the same thing as we did last year. We've had some confusion out there that people have actually remembered the 800 number to FEMA. Don't call FEMA because they're going to tell you that the event has been closed for several months. This is a total new thing again. So call 211, give them the information. Currently right now we have 31 residents that have signed up on 211, and we're going to be doing damage assessments here in the next couple of days to go out and start putting numbers together. The American Red Cross will be going with us this time because it's such a wide area of housing. There's a good chance that they could be helping with individual assistance or monetary donations to residents based on this type of damage. Since this all started, we've handed out a little over just about 20,000 sandbags. What I mean by that is we didn't fill them; we were handing them out custom. They're still working at the highway shop making bags. We had a sandbag station made up at Chris Road, so the residents out there could make them and stuff like that. Mike's crew's got the gravel for the sand for us. It worked pretty much seamless to get the stuff out there once we determined. On Saturday morning, we had a meeting at the Emergency Operations Center. Dan, you were there. I sent out an email to all of the stakeholders saying this is what we got going on, this is what we need to do, and we needed to evacuate some of the areas because the plan was Saturday morning to start filling sandbags for residents. Well, Friday night, we were still right below the major recorded flood stage, and by that morning, we were 3 foot higher than what we were. So we had no recourse to even help the citizens. It just come up that fast. So we went around with the search and rescue teams, or the rescue teams went out. They went through Chris Road, Wildwood Drive, and to Shreve's Trailer Court, and asked anybody if they needed assistance to evacuate because the roads were getting impassable. We don't have the authority to mandatory evacuate people, but if they needed help to go, we helped. But we also want to know if you were going to stay. That way, if something was, we know people are in there. There was a question asked to me why we weren't shutting power off. And I or the county, we don't have the authority. It's up to the homeowner or the development, if you will, like a trailer court, to shut it off because of maybe freezers going down, damage, stuff like that. But for the most part, it went out. Some of the biggest problems that we had were people going around barricades, taking barricades down, and going into places that they seemed that they had to go to. I mean, we're solving a couple issues that we're still going to try to get through. We just need to help people. Let me rephrase that. We have some businesses that need to plan, help them to devise some plans. So in the event we ever have to do this again, it's good to go.
What's the fine for going around a barricade?
My understanding, it's a Class 2 misdemeanor, isn't that? Would that be a fair statement? That's like $500. Up to
$500. Okay.
And and for the most part, though, I have to be honest, everybody was well. Everybody wanted to help. We didn't have any problems for the most part. The citizens, like you had said earlier, all worked together. What can we do to help? And I mean, I think you see a lot of the things Yankton County proud. I mean, it's really cool.
Yankton County proud, yep.
So anyway, the 211 helpline, please call there if you have damage. We want to make sure everybody gets registered because if you don't get registered, you might get missed. I mean, we working with the Equalization Office and District 3, are getting maps and houses, and so we're gonna go out and do we don't miss anybody in the flooded area. We're using the 100-year flood map, even though this is the second 500-year flood we've had in 1 year. We should be done now for about 1,000 years, so.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No. What was do we have the final level of, I heard something?
27.3.
27? Wow.
3 feet above
Yeah.
last record. And we're gonna get rain this weekend, and the core's going to 80,000 this weekend.
And the gym was at about a little over 100,000 CFS coming out of that, so.
I don't know if anybody's noticed, they're shutting down the interstate by.
I heard
weekend.
about that. So. Okay. So
Anything else?
you need,
Questions, anybody?
anybody from the audience have a question or anything? Again, we'd like to just reiterate, thank you. You've done so much for Yankton County, and he makes it look easy, the number of hours he put in.
It's a great staff that I have,
Yep.
you know, with Aaron and
Yep.
Sherry, and
Aaron.
I gotta carry Danielle Frick, who worked with
Yep.
us there. We have Robert Taylor. I mean, we got a bunch of people, and then the city elected officials and other people that
Yes.
came to the meetings,
Yep.
public safety.
Yep.
It all makes it happen. It's just not me doing it, so.
We definitely got our money's worth out of the deputy this year, that's for sure, so thank you. All right, anybody from the audience care to speak on this resolution? Now would be the time. Anybody? All right. Close public comment. Back to the board. Any discussion on this? Entertain a motion.
I'd move approval of the resolution declaring an emergency for James River flooding fall of 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Motion pass. Go get us some money now, Paul.
Well, we're hoping this
Yeah,
goes wrong.
we hope so.
Actually, the governor was talking today about this would be number 5 for the state. There's 3 still sitting on the president's desk, and you know, if this one would go out, it would be number 5 in 1 year for the state of South Dakota.
Yeah.
I'll pick that up tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Next item on the agenda, item number 9, snow removal. Mr. Woodmansey. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight to ask for a formal request of bids for snow removal for 3 of our buildings. We have the Government Center, the Extension Office, and also the Safety Center. The main concern with the Safety Center, it's open 24/7, 365, where we have the police, sheriff, and the jail, so there's constant traffic all the time. Right now, we're at 3 employees. Beginning the 1st, our department head's coming back on a part-time basis, and he'll get back into the swing of things, but we are extremely short right now.
And we're looking at sidewalks, weekends, nights, types of off-hour type things.
For the Safety Center, yes. If we could get a little bit of help, maybe in the early mornings for the other 2 facilities, and I would say the Extension Office for the parking lot there, that's needed.
You're just looking at a motion to open bids, is that correct? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to open bids for snow removal for the 2019-2020 winter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Make sure you tell your guys we appreciate all their hard work. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 10, Eagle View Pictometry Contract. Mrs. Mackey, welcome.
Evening, thank you. Before I get started with the contract, I just wanted to touch base on what Paul was saying about the disaster. Our office too is working with him, and we'll be working forward with the taxpayers of Yankton County to make sure that anybody who's had damage this past year, whether it be from the March event or this most recent event or other reasons that might have caused damage to your property. We're going to be doing a mailing in a few weeks after things have hopefully settled down a little bit. It'll be on a large, bright postcard, and it's going to be asking people, we're going to be doing that mailing to the 1% and 5% flooded areas, and ask them to specifically contact our office and let us know if they've still got damage that hasn't been repaired by our assessment date of November 1st, so that we can accurately do an assessment for the upcoming 2020 year on their property. And that goes for anybody else in the county. If you've torn down buildings or done any improvements that we might not be aware of, just let us know and we'll adjust your value accordingly.
Lori, on that, is that something we're required to send out letters? Or
No.
could we just do some public service? I mean, we know how expensive mailings are.
I am going to do public service announcements. I got a quote today on the mailings. It would be 23 cents a postcard. And I had Matt and Jeff worked with the mapping to narrow it down to how many improved properties are involved in this 1% to 5% flooded area. And it would be about between 200 and 300 parcels that we'd be doing mailings to. So it wouldn't be a big expense.
Sure.
I could cover it in my budget.
Okay.
But we will be doing those public service announcements in addition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the pictometry contract. Paul was going to give me a nice plug on this and let you guys know how vital these maps are to us to have updated information on our maps. But that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I've had meetings with Sherry, to visit with Dan about it. We've met with the city to work out a contract. We cost share on the aerial imagery that we use for our GIS mapping. And that is through a company, it used to be called Pictometry, now it's known as Eagle View Pictometry. So what I've got tonight are two contracts. The first is the flyover contract that we cost share with the city. The total cost of the contract is $89,264. The city pays 32% of that, and the county's share is 68%. The payments are spread over a 3-year period. So each year for 3 years, the county's share of that is $20,233. We've been paying for that out of the data budget, and we have money in there each year for that. Unless you happen to have pulled it out this year, that money should be in there. And so I'm asking for signature on that new contract for the next flyover, which is planned to be done in the spring of 2021. No, 2020. I get my years mixed up here. The second contract I have is the Change Finder contract. The Change Finder data is given to the Planning and Zoning Commission, or Planning and Zoning Office, and they work with the mapping and the analysis that comes along with that to determine what buildings may be missing or torn down, what additions may have happened without permit, that sort of thing. The contract there is $7,505. The payment for that has kind of been in flux. I think 1 year I paid for the whole thing. The first time we did it, I paid for the whole thing. The second time we did it, we did a 50-50 split with planning and zoning. I'm flexible on how you guys would like us to work out that payment, or if you'd like to take it out of data. I guess ultimately it all comes out of the same pot, but where you'd like that line itemed. So I do have these two contracts here for signature. After your signature, Dan, on the main contract, that would go, I would take that over to the city and get the city's signature on that as well before it gets submitted to the company, and we'd get a signed copy back.
Good. Sounds good. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
Lori, you said 22,000 for the county, for the imagery,
$20,200.
and how much is the city paying?
The city would pay each year $9,500.
That's all?
Yes. There's different formulas that we use to figure out the share of this. There's different costs for the size of, I don't want to call them pixels, sectors they call them. And there's a blend of sectors. The city has a high resolution, but they're a very small area compared to the rest of the county. Then we, along with, well, the city doesn't make much use of it, but we've got not this super high resolution, but a better resolution to go out into the lake area and through the corridor north and to corridor east. And that's so that we can pick up those highly populated areas with more accuracy. And then the rest of the county is flown at a lower resolution.
Any other questions for?
So the last change finder we did was in
We contracted for it in 2015. We didn't, because of the short windows of time that are available to get these high-resolution pictures, we missed our flight in 2016, so they flew it in 2017, so that's when we got the change finder as well. So 2017, based on a flight that was flown in 2017, so now we're 2 years later. Right now we'll be 3 years out next spring if it gets flown on time. The past two contracts, we haven't got them flown in the correct year. And what happens then when they have to postpone and fly it in the next year, they give us a discount on the pricing.
If I remember right, on the last one, we had 300 violators essentially found in the change finder.
We did, and zoning had shared that that was actually more than we had the first time around, which was a little surprising, knowing that the first time around we found them and identified them, but there were no fines imposed. They just asked them to come in and get a permit. And this time they knew they were going to get fines, but we still had violators, so.
Any other questions for Lori? Any questions from the audience?
I think the only thing that I would request maybe next time we think about in 3 years when we have this discussion again is to take that 7,500 over 3 years to make it more even in our budget. Because if we do the other contract over 3 years, could we throw it in there and do this over 3 years too?
Sure.
So it just keeps our budget a little flatter from year to year versus those spikes.
Easier to budget for, yes. I agree.
And you feel the increase in assessed value that we've found justifies the 22,000 odd a year as far as coming back to us in taxes?
I wouldn't say it's going to be dollar per dollar return, but it's not just equalization that uses
Right.
these mappings. They are vital for emergency management. I don't know that the sheriff uses this mapping. I think they've got their own program. But it is used widely and by the public through the Beacon website.
And how many, last time I talked to you, how many users or views were on Beacon? It was just amazing. It was hundreds of thousands?
Yeah, it was well over 100,000, between 100 and 200,000.
Users of that, and
Within
those
a
are
year.
people who are able to do that and not stand in line and wait, and so I think it's a really good program. If you take it divided by that, it's actually pretty, very affordable. So.
I gotta admit, I don't miss the days of us having to pull property cards.
Yeah, okay. So you need a motion from us to approve the Eagle View pictometry contract?
Do you need two motions?
And the change finder, or is it?
Yes,
just
those
that
are
one?
two separate things.
Okay, so we'll need two motions.
Okay.
I move approval of the first.
Eagle View pictometry contract.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion pass. And then the next one is the change finder contract. Entertain a motion.
So
on the
moved.
change finder contract.
Move approval of the change finder.
And that was
contract.
about 7,000, correct?
7,500.
Okay, all right. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion pass. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lord.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 11, entrance application for Travis Devine. Mr. Sedlacek, welcome.
Hello. Got an entrance app for Travis Devine. It's Lesherville Road and Highway 81. You go a mile west and then south, about a quarter mile. As of right now, it's shared access to that property, and they'd like to have his own approach. So,
How far is this approach from like another approach?
I suppose about an eighth mile.
Eighth mile.
And where the approach that they share right now, it's towards the low end of the field. So
Okay.
I was out there, looked at it. Where he wants to put it is towards the top of a little knoll. Still have to put a culvert in case of big rains. So
This is our first application with the new fee, correct?
yep.
Any complaints on the
Nope, I
increase?
haven't had any complaints yet.
Okay.
So
You do spend quite a bit of time going over this and paperwork and driving out there, and so, that was the justification for this, is there is a lot of time driving around and looking at it and approving it and putting it together, so. Alrighty. Any questions for Mike on this entrance application? Any questions from the audience? All right, back to the board. Entertain a motion on the entrance application for Travis Devine.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, entrance application for Daniel Grant.
located, was it a mile and a half north of Mission? No. Yeah, about a mile and a half north of Mission Hill, right on the oil there. Just looking at putting in a second driveway to the north of the existing one.
How far is that away from the existing one?
Oh, I would say 400 foot, roughly.
Okay.
Topography looks okay. Come in.
Right.
Entrance and exit off the highway.
Yeah. And I met with Daniel. I don't see an issue there. Just have, like follow the guidelines. We have 4-to-1 slope,
Sure.
It's better than, it'll be most likely better than the existing driveway there. So.
Yeah, definitely. Any questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Right, back to the board. Entertain a motion.
Move approve. Oh,
Okay, I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion pass. Next item, right-of-way for Lyle Hogger.
They're gonna bore a 8-inch drain tile underneath the highway. Be approximately a mile and a quarter north of the Mayfield store. Bore underneath the highway there. I guess I don't, they'll be working in their property, so they won't even be touching our right of way, they'll just be boring underneath the road.
Did you collect the fee for this one?
Yep.
Too?
Yeah, it's not on here.
Okay. Any complaints on the no
Nope.
fee from this one either? Okay. All righty. Any questions from the board on this?
No.
Any questions from the audience? All right, back to the board. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion pass. Thank you. You want to give us a little bit of update while you're up here on what you're seeing out there on the roads and how our James River bridges are doing?
I guess road flooding, last Friday we went out and put up a lot of barricades and never seen the water levels this high before, so Saturday we ended up putting some hip waders on and dragging the signs up out of the water a little farther, and never before would I ever think to see Johnson Bridge totally underwater, There's some scouring issues on the east side of the head wall.
On Johnson Bridge?
Not below, but along the roadside, behind the guardrail and stuff, that needs repair. The scouring issue at Fleegs, can't really tell right now with that northeast corner there till the water recedes more. I don't believe it's gotten much worse, but we'll find out. Main thing with these bridges, I know there's a lot of question on when are these bridges going to be open. With the amount of water that's been going under these bridges or over these bridges, they need to have a thorough inspection done. I talked to Clark Engineering today. He's checking into getting a sonar camera to check the scour underneath the water of Fleegs Bridge. That's number one concern there with that amount of water, you know. That between this spring and this event, you know, it needs to be done. My thoughts, you know. Then like this weekend too, there was question on why, like Friday, a question on why Johnson Bridge was closed. There wasn't water over the road. There was not, you know, it was above water yet, but anytime that water starts touching the girders, start getting that side pressure, they recommend to close it. So Jamesville, that bridge was totally underwater. All you could see is the low limit sign sticking out of the water. The object markers, the guardrail, everything was underwater. Stone Church stayed above water, but the water was right up to the bridge deck. You know, so it's seen a lot of pressure too. You know, and we have two bridges that have needed repairs within the last few years. I think we would be very wise to make sure we have them thoroughly inspected.
I think that's wise. Safety first. I mean, is that kind of what the commission agrees on, get them inspected before we reopen?
You've not tried any of those trees, have you? Because all of them are packed with trees.
Right.
Yes.
There's trees on the front side, all the way waving on the back side.
Especially when there's water up against them, you're asking
Yeah.
for trouble.
Yep, exactly.
That works.
We could have bent girders.
Exactly, you don't know what's
underneath.
under there. Well, and then if you look at it this way, you start either picking the stuff out, and if you can't pick it out, then you gotta push it under. Well, what if it doesn't come through? Then you might be causing pressure
More
somewhere
damage,
else, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's best to let her recede and see what happens, so.
And 46 is still closed.
46, I believe it is open today.
It's open
Really?
today, okay.
81 opened yesterday.
Yesterday.
Correct. Okay, so that should alleviate some, you know, the traffic we were seeing on.
Right, and this morning, we opened up Walshtown Road and Old Highway 50. This evening yet, there was still a small amount of water south of Mission Hill on the oil. We left the barricades up. If someone hit that at 55 mile an hour, middle of the night, hydroplane, it could be ugly, you know, so that's why we left the barricades up on that. Other than that, up north, well, along the Jim River, a lot of them gravels, it's got to come down a long ways before that will be opened. And the bridges with the inspections again, going back to that, talking with Adam, with Clark, we're shooting for possibly next week early, hopefully, if things go well.
Okay.
Kind of looking at Johnson Bridge and Fleegs at the same time, Jamesville and Stone Church. Water's got to go down a long ways yet, you know.
I had the opportunity to spend 6 or 7 hours yesterday riding in the front seat of his pickup, looking at bridges and roads and barricades, and I have to say that one of the most disturbing frustrations that I picked up from them was people going around barriers. And I think we should request that in a situation like this, we have the sheriff at least have one deputy or whatever out going around the area, because we saw almost every place there was a barrier, we sat there for a few minutes, we would see somebody going around the barrier. And,
And the worst part is when they take down
take
they'll
down-
either physically move the whole barricade or they'll take down the snow fence so they can drive around.
And when these guys are out there at 2 o'clock in the morning putting barriers
Yeah.
up, they shouldn't have to go back at 6 in the morning and reinstall them.
Rob, is the barrier fine, is that a state fine or is that a county fine? Is it? Okay. All right.
It's an electric fence, Mike.
Also got to see them put in a, was it 72-foot culvert?
Oh, wow.
Yep,
By 84 inches.
84 inch by 70, you know,
Oh, wow.
up on the Midway Road.
Oh, wow.
Tomorrow, all they have to do is get the grader up there, level it up, and put gravel on it, and that project will be done.
Send me a photo when you do that.
I got a whole bunch of them.
All right, sounds good. You know, we just asked for the county's patience with us on these bridges as we're trying to make sure you guys are safe, and we don't want to open up these bridges until they've been properly inspected, because it's not worth somebody's life to do so. And I thank you for looking into that. So, anything? Yeah, you got something, Gary?
Sunday morning from about 2 to 4 in the morning, I was out, there was a family evacuating just west of the Fleet Bridge. Somebody was crying for help. We don't know where it was coming from, to the northwest. So 2 of the deputies came out and one of them drove over there, but he couldn't even drive over there with the 4-wheel drive, and he listened, and so then 2 deputies and I went on the Fleet Bridge, and one of them said, "You feel this thing vibrating?" And all 3 of us said, "Yeah," and then it was creaking and cracking, and one of the deputies said, I think we need to get off of this, you know. And I grew up in Yankton County. The James River is the slowest moving river in the world, I'm told. I've never seen whitecaps on the James River before, and this is unreal. So, we got off.
Thanks.
And one other thing, there was a big rumor going around that Fleeg's Bridge was coming apart. It's the expansion joints. They're meant to be there.
If you look down in there, the deputies and we couldn't reach in there, but the water was like 1.5 foot down, so it was close.
Anybody got any questions for Mike Weiss, or Mr. Slotchek Weiss here? Well, we really appreciate.
Yep.
We appreciate all the work you and your guys have done. They put in a lot of hours, and they've done an excellent job. So thank you very much.
Yep.
All right.
Part of our job.
Mike's gonna leave. I got a question. When I came back from Washington DC last week, you guys still rent those or lease those 2 big John Deeres to mow with?
We just have one.
You just have one.
Yep.
You got a cab and air. It's got a cab and air conditioning.
Yep.
Okay. Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, state, county workers got new tractors, no cabs. So tell them that they're fortunate. I stopped and talked to them and they said,
Well, that tractor, it's also a big enough tractor for, in the wintertime for the snow blower, so.
yeah.
All right, thank you. Next item on, anybody need a break or keep on going? All right, next item on the agenda, item number 12, repair of road or alternate access, Mr. Mike Marlowe. See here. Mr. Marlowe.
He's coming right now.
All right.
Oh, perfect timing.
Almost on time.
We're ahead.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning, good evening, I guess. My name is Mike Marlowe. I'm an attorney here in town. I represent the estate that owns some land. You have copies of the application in front of you, I think. We've got an attached map there as well. We've had access through this to this property in all sides of the property in past years. If you look at your map there, on the east side of the section, that is a minimum maintenance road. And typically you could drive along that road. When the property was first purchased, you could drive along the road all the way to the northeast corner.
because of the rain, which you've been hearing about, obviously, that lake is swollen to much larger than it typically is, and so the east road is not passable. So we're trying to determine a different access route, and it's pretty challenging. You can't really come from the north because the lake that is shown on the north and east of the quarter section is also swollen, and that road is impassable. So in essence, it is an isolated tract, and we really can't get there without either major road reconstruction or access. We think that the only reasonable access is probably from the northeast quarter, which is owned by Mr. Gall. Earlier on, when the roads became impassable, there was some millet that's currently planted in the crosshatched area on your maps there in the very northeast corner, and that was planted and growing, and we needed access. There's a gentleman that's renting the property. We needed access to harvest the millet, and originally it was denied, but through some action from the sheriff's office and some contact between my client and Mr. Gall, there was an agreement worked out where the renter could get in there and at least harvest the crop for this fall. Mr. Gall's son has some cattle that are pasturing in that area to the north. They're constantly getting out and eating over on the millet field, so we had to waive our claim against the trespassing cattle to get this arrangement done on a one-time basis to get the millet harvested. The problem we have, of course, is that particular parcel and the other parcel on the property is now enrolled in the CRP program. So we have to get seeding done. We can actually get it done this fall after November 1st, which would be our preference. Otherwise, we have to do it in the spring. We have a chance at least getting it in this in November 1st, and I think it would be really difficult to get it in next spring. But some of it would have to be planted in any event. Again, next spring we're going to have the same access issues we have right now. So lacking building a substantial improvement to the road on the east, on the section line road, I think our only option is to get access from Mr. Gall. And I did contact his attorney to discuss negotiating a possible access. Didn't get a response at present. I'm not sure we're going to get a response. But I wanted to get a chance to come and visit with you folks, tell you what's going on, get the application on board so you can take the necessary next steps to go out and view the property and try to work out some kind of an access. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
It was interesting to me as I read the laws that you noted, 1935, I think, was when they were written.
Yeah, that was when they first became law.
And if I go out there, I get paid $3 a day.
And 5 cents a mile.
And 5 cents a mile.
Yeah, and that actually has to come from my client, so we have to pay you folks to go out there and take a look. Horse and buggy.
Gives you some context for, I can only imagine what happened in the 30s and 40s.
Well, in the 30s, obviously, we didn't have issues with water. But,
well, no.
They were amended I think there was a slight amendment in 2004 to one of the sections. So, again, I'm sure you're seeing these kinds of issues all over. And actually, if you look, again, at the map, at the crosshatched area in our northeast corner, if you look straight to the east, that piece over there in the adjoining quarter section is also landlocked. So if we can get some kind of a resolution to get access to the trust property, that would also help out that neighbor person over there, because there's no chance that they have access to theirs either. So probably going to be looking at a similar request, I would imagine.
So right now, this is just for our information, let us know.
Yeah, so the process is we apply to have you folks, if we can't work it out with the neighbor, then you folks come in, you take a look at things, you assess what is an appropriate access, use your powers of eminent domain and essentially condemn an access, and then you assess what the value of it is. They can either accept that value, or they can appeal for a trial to the circuit court. And in the meantime, we get to have access regardless of whether they accept it or not. The access in this case is going to be, you really kind of have to get out there and take a look, but there's some pasture land on the north of our property that I think would allow maybe some access along a fence line or something, so we wouldn't interrupt the planting. The property on the north there has been prevent planted the last 2 years too, so it's pretty wet, but there is kind of a ridge that would allow access. So we'll do the best we can to work it out with Mr. Gall, but based on prior discussions and things, I think that's going to be futile, and you folks are going to have to get something scheduled to get in there and take a look. And we'd sure like to have that done so we can get in and plant the CRP after November 1st.
Rob, have you done many of these before?
We did one. We've done one. And Mike and I have been talking, and my thought, and I know Mike's it's more of an informational, just to kind of speed up the time and let you know where things are. But maybe a thought would be maybe to get Mike out there, maybe one of you and me or something, and kind of look at it and with Mike or Mike's client, and kind of get a visual and maybe report back next meeting, and just to kind of keep it going. Just in case something happens, they're unable to work it out, then we're ready to go and we're in a position where we feel comfortable. And then at least we kind of know visually what it looks like. We know what Mike believes is a good path or location, and ensure it's an isolated track, because with all this flooding and water, I mean, like Mr. Marlowe says, there could be other issues we're addressing too, coming up too, so.
One of the commissioners want to volunteer to do that?
I would.
You want to do that? No. Don?
Yep.
Don, meet up with you and the state's attorney and take a look at it.
I would request that Mike Zalachik probably be there too.
Oh, sorry, that's what I said. When I meant Mike, I meant
Oh,
Mike Zlacek.
okay.
And Mr. Marlowe.
Too
is
many
fine.
Nope,
Mike. Sorry about that.
Mike
I used
squared.
Marlowe the second time instead of Mike, so.
And we would certainly, if Mr. Gall would be interested, or I communicate through his attorney, and if he's interested in maybe being part of the process too, that would be great with us. And ultimately, then he gets once you've sort of taken a good look, all the commissioners will have to go out and make the determination, and there's a 5-day notice requirement to the adjoining landowner, 5-day advance notice of any visit that you have to make a determination. So we would certainly want to include him in any preliminary stuff too, if he's willing to chat with us. So.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll add that to the
And I was going to give you some
meeting,
Google
an
Earth,
update on that.
better maps and presentation for you tonight, but Google Earth doesn't show what's going on out there now. So.
We'll have a flyover in 2020 that will.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe a drone or something, we can get some better ideas. So.
I'll say I did go out there with Mr. Cody a month or so ago and did take a look at that. You'll see. I mean, it as it sits, there is no access to that northeast corner of that quarter. And there's a road or a section line on the half section. Is that a half mile north of that corner or a half mile south of that?
South.
South. So from the east, there's a section line, but that is almost worse, right?
Yeah, that's worse. Yeah, there's a lake that it regularly exists across the south end of the quarter.
The section line at the half section that goes out to the oil, but it's underwater too, so.
So anyhow, we'll be happy to work with anyone that we can, and we just need to try to be able to get some access by the 1st of November so we can get some seeding done. And I think that the process is well defined by statute, and just thought we'd give you a heads up.
Okay.
Give you some more good news. It might make some sense also maybe to talk to the folks that also have that landlocked piece next door. I don't know if you want to, I don't think it would be any additional expense or issue if we tried to take care of their issue as well. So, all right.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 13, neighborhood watch guidelines not being followed. Mr. Dan Dolish. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Dolish. I live at 307-324 444th Avenue, Mission Hill, South Dakota. Title I'm going to talk today's Neighborhood Watch because what I'm doing is watching out for a number of the families in the area that are surrounding the first 2,400 head factory hog barn on 308 Street. Vicki and I live approximately 5/8 of a mile northwest of this barn. Last year, in March, on March 3rd, Mr. Shank was approved for a Class D CAFO, which was two 2,400 head barns. After this, Carl had phoned us and told us that he was only going to build one barn and plant trees if we quit fighting him on these barns, which we agreed. In August of 2018, he reapplied to modify this operation to the one 2,400 head barn, which was a Class E CAFO. As stated on that application, 3138, he states the reason for his request was a compromise with neighbors and a single barn was preferred. On August 21st, that application was approved with a 3-to-1 vote, with Mr. Kettering being absent. Then, December 17th, that application was brought back and presented again to the commission, which passed with a 4-to-0 vote, with Mr. Swenson being absent. I would like to know why, what the purpose of the second vote was for. I must have missed something here. I don't know why that happened. Does anybody know why that might have happened? Mr. Kettering, do you? No?
Didn't somebody file a lawsuit against Carl during that time frame? I'm asking.
I don't know anything about lawsuits.
It seemed like.
Are you want to speak or me? Go ahead.
It's sure, I said, Brian, it takes 4 out of 5. It takes,
yep.
You have to have 4 out of 5 votes. You need a
3-to-1 wouldn't have actually
or
approved.
You consider the acting board, not the one people present, and the vote. Conditional use and a variance require 4.
Okay, well, that answers that one.
But Rob, is there such thing in our zoning ordinance as modifying a CUP? I guess I thought the Board of Adjustment was given the power to grant or deny a CUP. Nowhere does it say modifying one.
You mean if there's one that was issued?
Well,
That would be the second one, I would believe that would be if it was notified properly and done.
What was that?
Conditional use.
Was that the case, though? Okay. Brian, did you have something you'd like to add?
No, I was just going to address the supermajority requirement.
Okay.
When you had that 4-to-0 vote, I think that's when I was in the heart hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Last week on Monday, September 9th, I was notified that Mr. Shank was applying to the South Dakota DENR for a permit to build an extension to this facility by adding another 2,400 head barn. That decision for that will be in 30 days from when he applied it, which I believe was the 9th. This will change him back to a Class D unit. But wait, there has been no CUP that I know of that's been applied for or approved for that change. So I went down to the zoning office on Monday and I acquired a copy of the permit the DNR says he had. His building permit application looks to be a copy of his previous permit from last January and re-signed August 15th of 2019. I mean, I'm no lawyer, but I don't feel that that's right to take a copy of a previous one that's been modified showing that it wasn't modified. So I just thought that was wrong. So that's kind of what brought me here to speak about this.
So Dan, you're saying that the CUP that was the reason for the issuing of the building permit was the one prior to the modification from back in, when was it, November, or when was it?
August of last year. Okay, here's the modification one.
Could we, do you have some stuff we could make copies for the board? Would you mind waiting a second? We'll get a copy for everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was going to do that.
No, we'll do that
But
for you.
this one here is the application for the building permit.
Okay.
And as you can see down here, the first barn was January, and then he came back in and said
Could you give eight copies of that, please? Or, yeah.
he said last August, the 15th, that he re-signed it again over the top of that January 25th signature.
Over the top of the original document?
Yeah. Now that was, like I say, that was the original one that he applied for last January, and then he modified it. So actually that one should have been null and void if it was modified and approved twice, but approved. And I just felt that that was wrong. He needs to come back and apply for a CUP, in my opinion. I mean, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide that, but that's how I feel. Plus, he's breaking the verbal agreement that he had with us and the neighbors, and the proof of that is in that written statement that he submitted on that application in August, which says compromise with neighbors, single location barn preferred. To me, this proves that the man can't be trusted. I'm sorry to say that, but a lot of people are losing trust in people that do this. Also, may I add that he has also built a 2,400 head nursery barn across the road on his farming operation. So let's see, if this was approved, you add the 3 barns together in a square mile area, that would actually be over the limit and put them up to a Class C unit. Now that's going to have different setbacks. That's going to have different DNR permits. But things like this has to be stopped. And it's got to be stopped now. In the last couple of months, he's already started a couple other barns on 306th Street, which, what I'm told, are expired permits. That also, I feel, needs to be discovered or decided upon too. If he started his barns 180 days after the permit was issued, then yes, that is an expired permit. The other thing I was going to touch on is I don't think Mr. Shank cares that I know he knows that my fiance has asthma, and I know he knows one of my other neighbors has asthma also. And I don't think that he cares that others can become ill from these toxic fumes that are rolling up and down the hill to everyone. 3 times this summer, my kids came to swim in my swimming pool that I had to acquire a CUP for last year, and they couldn't because it stunk so bad in the yard. But they did get a couple of swims in throughout the summer when the wind was from the other direction. My Vicky now stays in the home 90% of the time because most of the time it stinks. And I added another note to this today. I wanted to add that last night Vicky and I were wakened from our sleep because of the fumes. The wind was pushing the fumes into our house, and the wind was blowing straight at us. And it just woke us up. It stunk so bad. Luckily, the wind shifted by morning by 6, and everything got better. So now we have to, we got a bid to add electronic air filters and a UV air purifiers to our HVAC system. More money I have to spend to put up the stench from his barn. I want you to consider the fact that property values are dropping, and I and many others probably will be coming in to have our taxes decreased. This has been because of the reduction of the quality of life in this area. I've also heard last week, currently there's a petition to dissolve the Mission Hill Township. This is primarily due to the irresponsible siting of numerous hog confinements. I am told no one seems to know the exact amount of approved CAFOs. Maybe 20 or so, I'm not sure. Mr. Kettering, do you have any idea how many were approved this last year and a half?
Half a dozen.
Okay. And who is regulating the trees that were promised on some of these facilities? I know mine, the barn south of me, was not added. My neighbors have told us the barn on 304 is responsible for a lot of damage to that stretch of road. Today, that road is almost impossible for passenger vehicles to drive on. You have to have a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle. So as our commissioners, you have the responsibility to protect the safety, health, and welfare of our constituents. What are you going to do to protect us? Like I said, there are several barns under construction. Are they being built illegal? I don't know. The decision has to be found. This has to be checked out. And I'd like to say it's time for a moratorium on CAFOs in Yankton County until we get this activity under control. Thank you.
I just got one question, Mr. Dolish. Does Mr. Shank live next to you, and does his kids ride the school bus with your kids and go to church with you, or where
No.
does
We're
he live?
grandparents. Our kids are all gone.
Oh, okay.
But our grandkids come to our house every weekend.
But his family lives real close to you?
No, he lives in Dakota Dunes, from what I've been told.
Mr.
His
Shank?
farming operation is,
Oh, so he doesn't live in Yankton County? Mr. Shank?
legally, he has a farming address of his old farm place, which is, I believe,
Well, Dakota Dunes is 60 miles
west
away.
on 308, but he continues to have that address, so,
Oh, that's right. His lawyer said it was his corporate office that time.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are, Mr. Dolish, what are you're asking us to check into the validity of the building permit that was issued on, is this the one on 8/15-19?
And that one needs to be stopped. Somebody needs to let the state DNR know that I feel, but you guys will have to determine, I don't feel that that permit is legit
So,
or should have been issued.
And then, correct me if I'm right, and you said if this permit is valid and is issued because of the 4,800 plus the 240 nursery, it would have made it a Class
C.
C, is that correct? And
Yes, and that
has
would
no
require
setbacks?
1 mile setbacks,
And how far are you from,
5/8 of a mile. But I have a neighbor to me that's even a half mile from him.
so if a Class C is setback is 2,640 feet and your residence would be closer than that, is that correct?
For Class C,
Yes.
I thought Class C was a mile.
Thanks. Yeah, okay.
It's been a while since
Sure,
I've investigated a lot of this stuff.
Sure.
Since I've been,
So those are the two,
Shut out.
that's what you want answers to, those two
yeah,
things?
and I'd like to have answers.
Yes.
Brian, could we ask Brian
Yes.
how many permits have been issued?
I came in Monday to talk to Brian, but he also went to the meetings that were up in Pierce, so I didn't get a chance to talk with him.
Just hog, general permits?
Hog permits, cable for hogs.
One. I've issued one hog permit
Not 25.
since I've been here, which would be March 4th. That's all the CAFO permits I have issued.
But did you see your application for the building permit from August 15th?
I
Did you get a
issued-
copy of this?
Yes, I issued it. That's my signature on that permit.
Yeah,
Filled it out in front of me in our office.
but he's only approved for one barn on that facility, so why would we just issue a barn for a 2,400 head finishing unit without getting the CUP that's required or modifying the CUP that he does have back to what he wants to build now? I just think it was a mistake.
Well, I've never had a prepared statement in 30 years of doing this, but I have one tonight. So I issued a building permit to Carl Shank for a second barn of 2,400 head based upon information provided to me at the time of his application. Upon direction and further review, the information provided was found to be inaccurate, and the building permit was revoked this afternoon, or at least the process was commenced.
Okay.
I personally
Thank you.
called him while I was driving around I-90. So that's where it stands today. Where it goes from there, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not this is a very confusing situation with the two conditional uses. You have one approved, one in court, or I don't know if that's moving or not. I'm not party to that, and I inherited this. So I issued the permit, I take responsibility for it.
Brian, I'm just trying to get at I think you said 25. I don't know of any 25 buildings going up in Yankton County.
Well, I think the point is nobody, I have no idea. I mean, we had CUPs, we had some not CUPs, we had some individuals that would get a CUP and then the next week come in and get a building permit for the same type of facility. You know, that's, I think, what he's getting at, and I think we owe the public an explanation. I can tell you right now, I have no idea.
I know a lot of the neighbors are talking.
I think that could be a very easy explanation. I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to get that, but it's not 25.
Like I say, I don't know.
Now, the second point, I drove out today by both of Mr. Shank's buildings. I drove my truck, having gotten permission from him to enter on his property. I drove my truck within 5 to 10 feet of his building. The only smell that I could detect with all 4 windows down was when I was on the south side because there was northwest wind. When I got
that
out,
southeast wind last night pushed it right to me. So
when I got out to the road,
bad.
when I got out to the road, I couldn't smell anything. I may not be a good smeller.
That might, is that?
Better check your. You better have that checked. Because I had to drive down. I drive down that road now just because of all the bypassing with all the roads, and when I got close to his house, that farming operation, I could smell it.
Well, one of the reasons that I get suspicious and want to check things is last summer I got a call from a lady out in your area, she's very polite, but she was upset because she wanted to sit out on her porch in the summertime, which I would think she should be able to, and enjoy it. And she said she couldn't do it because of that hog finishing unit in South Yankton. Now, that unit is, that she was talking, because I identified it, is the one about a half a mile east of 81, which was buried 5 or 6 years ago. Buried. But she knew that it was that hog unit that was causing all the problem. I think it was probably Heine feedlot. It was probably a smell.
Could have been, yeah.
Rob,
I know where this is coming from, so.
Rob, what is your thought on the issuance of the building permit? And I guess the subsequent, that it's been revoked?
Oh, well, my understanding, and I know a little bit, I was here, but
Sure.
my understanding was it was a 4,800 head, and it was permitted, and then he came back, Carl Schenk, and then asked for 2,400, and then I think it was permitted, then appealed. That's my understanding. But then my point more, and I know Brian addresses a little bit too, is that's something we need to look at and kind of see where things are going.
Should we, what should we do? Because I saw this was in the paper for DENR permitting. Should we contact DENR and let them know that there's some questions here?
They're aware of it, I wrote them also. The
Okay.
city let me know the decision.
Okay.
So then I don't necessarily know if she's sending something, I think that's fine. I talked to DNR, they said whether we permit first, they permit first, that it didn't matter. Maybe that's not the issue here, but that's what
Sure.
they did tell me.
Okay.
So I don't know. We're addressing something kind of on the fly. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's something you want to be addressed at the next meeting, I'm
Yeah,
comfortable
I
to
think
help
we
look
have
through
to do
stuff and
that.
go
I
through the
think-
permits
yeah.
and look at things. But
Yeah.
the only thing we had today was, the notice was neighborhood
Sure.
watch guidelines for not being followed. So you're coming today and saying, well, guess what, there's all these problems.
Okay.
I'm agreeing they need to be looked at and we can
Okay.
kind of figure it out, and
We
that's
can put
something
it
to
on
address.
our next meeting for the next agenda. I guess what we need to address is if we did permit something and we need to know what we were permitting, if the class has changed by the addition or subtraction of a, a building, I think that is important distinction. So we'll need to address that, and then how the building permit got issued, and we can do that at the next meeting. Is that satisfactory for you? Is there anything else any of the commissioners want to add? Does that sound like a plan, or does that sound adequate?
Yeah, and I think it's a good plan.
Okay.
I think it sounds good.
Any other questions for Mr. Dolish?
Just wait a minute. Okay. This relates to the smell, to the odor. Just bear with me.
Can we do that? That's the next agenda item, if we want to go on to the...
You want to go on to that?
The next item on the agenda is Mission Hill Hog CAFO odor complaints. If it's odor, do you want to do it at that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
This was neighborhood
I need
watch.
you.
I guess I didn't know it was going to go into this. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions for Mr. Dolish?
I just need Mr. Dolish to help me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Do you want to speak on this one or the next one?
Pardon?
Do you want to speak on this issue?
Particular thing.
On Mr. Dolish?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you 3 minutes. Come on up. No personal attacks.
Lou Johnson, Baldwin, South Dakota. Just a few things. The roads, he kind of was alluding to that was, because of the truck traffic. The trucks did not do it 1 ounce of good while they were building. Same way, the trucks up on 304 caused a lot of damage there. I know how much the two gentlemen have spent to rebuild the roads. I'm not sure on the gravel and the red rock amount, but I know it was a lot of money. And probably the one that gets me is out of the townships that I do the maintenance work in, the road going past Slowies. I got a phone call one day from Gary Townsend. Can you get a road grader up there? I got a guy stuck on the road with his new pickup, and I can't get within a 1/4 mile of him. I called up Bob Chop, and I said, Bob, here's the scenario. And he said, stay home. He says, when it dries out, he can drive his pickup out. I know there's an individual up there that has an Army 6x6 that got it stuck on the road. There's no CAFOs there. And that road, well, I didn't touch it for 2 months. You just said, just forget it, because you go out there, a pickup weighing 1,500 pounds a wheel is stuck. You come in with a road grader weighing 15,000 pounds a wheel, you're just gonna go deeper. So blaming all of this on construction and on the hog units is a little unfair, because I can point out probably a dozen spots where they are housing developments that ruined the road, and there's no CAFOs around them. The other thing, we have our unit, for those of you that were there, is 196 feet from our house. Tonight, it smelled terrible. The thing was, there's hardly any wind, and it just kind of floats out. If there's any wind over 5 miles an hour, I've had to walk to the hog house to make sure the fans were working, because I was nervous. So let's not jump to too many conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak on this before we move on? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 14, Mission Hill Hog CAFO odor complaints. I'm the one who put this on the agenda because I got a tremendous amount of phone calls and emails and Facebook messengers and all of these things. I have a few of these that people sent me and asked me to read into the record. So I guess I'm going to do this now. I had an individual who called me and asked that I read this into record. So this is Mr. Tom Schwaber. He said, Dan, I would like to register a complaint of the smell of raw sewage that happened on the night of 9/10/19 near Van Osdale Terrace in Mission Hill. My wife and I hung our clothes out about 9 a.m. on the 10th, and And when we rode home, there was a bad odor, which I described as a sewage dump. He believes it was liquid hog manure, and he drove around Mission Hill and noticed the area had the same smell. And he noticed it was coming from the confinements around the area. So he says, can you tell me who I am to notify of future such happenings, Mr. Schwaber? And he asked me that we put this in the record. And then I got, the person who actually asked me to have this was an Alex Mondreg. Are you here tonight, Alex? Is she here tonight? She asked me to put this on, and she said the stench from, this is her words, the hog refinery is absolutely disgusting and unbearable. The majority of citizens in Yankton County are avidly against this type of farming. It's absolutely horrible for the environment, and on top of that, it will destroy our property values. So if anybody else would care to speak on this, you certainly can come up and address the board at this point. So come on up. State your name, sir, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Ray Up, Mission Hill, South Dakota, 30849 448th Avenue. I am responsible for that order. My hog confinement has a 6-month capacity, and it's been exceedingly wet and hard to manage the manure situation. I watched forecast, and I seen that a rain occurrence was coming. I had taken third cutting of alfalfa off the field, and yes, I did broadcast enough manure to get me by until beans come out, whenever that will be. I anticipate 5 weeks. So I had to broadcast it over. Rain came the following day, and the odor occurrence immensely dissipated. My operation is set up that way, and it will continue to run that way. It's been that way for, that barn was built in 1979, so 40 years we've had to broadcast manure during the summertime to get by until fall when I can incorporate it. It's been that way for 40 years.
Did you, Mr. Epp, I got a question. Did you get any flooding in your area?
Yes.
Okay, so where you applied that manure, did that get flooded?
Part of it did, yes. Most of it stayed on the high.
What do you think happened to the manure you broadcasted after it was flooded? Do you think it stayed there?
So I broadcast that on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we did have moisture that took it into the sub region of the soil. I can't answer. I'm anticipating that a liquid manure like that, we had, I would state that most of the nutrients adhered to the soil, and since the soil did not erode away, that my nutrients are still out there on that field, on my hay field. I've done it in the past.
I thought that, do you not knife this manure into the soil?
Yes, I do, in the fall. I had no place to knife it right now, Mr. Chairman. I have crops on my fields.
Well, what should we tell the dozens of people that have called me and concerned about this? What should I tell them?
What should you tell them? You should tell them that I've been doing this for 20-some.
Okay.
It's been
Most of these people say this is one of the Mr. Edison Jared from Mission Hill, one of the township board, said this is the worst thing he's ever smelled, and he almost threw up when he got out of his car. And he's been in Mission Hill his whole life. So why is this time so much worse than any other time?
I don't know that. I can't answer that, Mr. Chairman.
What can you do to make this more acceptable to the community? I understand you're in a situation, but is there anything you can do to help your neighbors and the community?
Planning like I did helped, because moisture followed, which dissipated the odor. If I would have done that on a 90-degree day with a 4-day forecast to that odor would have hung much longer in the air because of that. The moisture helping dissipate that I would say, is the proper way of doing that, Mr. Chairman.
I guess I don't from what I've heard with, water quality issues, that when you apply it to flood ground, a lot of that has very likely been removed, and it's headed on down the river. I mean, and we'll never know because nobody's doing these, but, I think it is very concerning. I've never got more complaints on anything than I have from this, and I hope that we can work together and do better.
I don't know if the alfalfa is gonna survive. My challenge would be to watch that field next spring, and you will notice where I broadcast that manure, there will be a difference in that field, and it'll be to my benefit. And that's where I rely my argument that it did not get washed away. It adhered to the soil. It stayed there. It's not like commercial, which can erode away, as Mr. Healy would probably back up that statement. With manure like that, it will adhere to the soil molecules.
Sure. Any other questions for Mr. Epp?
Where did you apply that, Ray?
Just west of my place.
Was it on,
Section, where am I? Where's 440th Avenue?
here's 448.
All right, where is my name here?
You're probably right over here.
Yep.
yeah.
So it's gonna be right behind my, it would be
On
right
the
back.
Celius and Trust
And
ground.
this is a high place in the field.
Did you
I got a question. Hey,
Go. Let Don go first. He was first, sorry.
One question, Ray. You said this building was built in the late 70s,
1979.
1979, and built with 6 months capacity instead of 20
Yes.
months, or not 20 months,
And
13
mine is
months.
24, the other barn is a 24-month capacity.
Yeah, okay. So, is there any law or ordinance that you broke by doing what you did?
No. Not with a 2,400 head operation.
So part of the issue of fixing it is, it has to be, it's gonna be changed, it's gotta be changed on a big scale, not just in
It's gonna have to,
Mission Hill Township.
if there's, this is a can of worms, but oh well, what the heck. This, in the old days, was called spreading manure. And many people still do that in the spring of the year with their cattle lots. And there's an order there too. Are we gonna go to a livestock-free county? Is that what the agenda, because this has been happening as long as farming has been farming. What we've done better about it is incorporating it in the fall of the year. That's the preferred practice, but when I do not have that option on a 6-month unit, and I pick a rain occurrence, not knowing that we were gonna get a flood through there, Mr. Chairman Clement, I've been, like I stated, I've been doing it personally for 22 years, but the farm has been doing it for 40.
I got a question. When your late brother-in-law, Alan Silliuson, built that hog barn, I remember it distinctly because we were eating ribs down at Wild Bill's and he told me all about it. Now, what's the capacity for your storage for your liquid manure in that hog barn, that 2,400 head you got? Is it 1 million gallons or is it less?
Oh, as far
10 million gallons or what is it?
No, in the one unit is probably 80,000 gallons, and the other unit is 450, I believe. So I got 500,000 gallon capacity between the two barns.
About 500,000 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Mr. Epp?
Right. Your standard practice is to incorporate it into the soil. How often
I do that.
do you, I was gonna ask, just how often do you have to land apply it? How many times have you
Just
been in
once.
this? Just once in the 22 years?
No, once a year, because that unit, the old unit is only 6 months.
Okay, so this is standard. You do this
Yes.
every year, and this is the first year.
I pumped it down 12 inches. So I put out 18 loads is what I put out. All I put out was to get me by until harvest, until I can incorporate it.
Okay.
Is all I did.
Yep. I
If I would have had
understand.
some bare ground that was dry, believe you me, it would have been incorporated, but I did not have that option.
Okay.
Do you have any means to pump from pit to pit, or have you ever done that?
That
I guess?
cross-contamination, even though they are the same pigs, I do not know what, but, there's microbes. I don't know what's in, that's not a good policy in the industry to put from one pit into the other. That's not-
Just, something for.
Is there any, like, plan, I know our farm on the James River, this is our third, depending on how you look at either the third or the fourth flood, and you're probably in the same boat, of second, third?
This is the third one in
Okay.
15 months.
And look at the spring we had last spring. I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like we're getting more of these large rain events. I mean, you may have to, think of something else if you're constantly getting flooded. We just hate to see all that stuff get washed down. I know that's worked for you in the past, but
I'm hoping for dry weather.
yeah, I think we all are. All right. Anything else from Mr. Up? Thank you, sir.
for
Thanks, Ray.
coming forward with that, Ray.
All right, anyone else care to speak on this? Just come on up to the podium. I'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, it's not gonna take that
All
long.
right.
I just have a question for Mr. Up. Mr. Up, do you ever, I'm sorry, my name is Vicki Tanner, and I live at 30732 444th Avenue in Mission Hill. Are you required to notify all of your neighbors when you do this in the summer? Have you been required in the last 20 years to do that?
I'm not required to do that, but I do contact my neighbors.
Okay, so did you contact people in Mission Hill and tell them you've been doing this? No?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Yeah, just address us, not.
Oh,
not
I'm
him.
sorry.
Please address us.
I'm sorry. Okay, so is he required to write any letters or any notification
I don't believe
to
he's
neighbors?
permitted, is he? Does anybody know? You don't have a
no,
conditional
this would
use
have been
permit, so.
built prior to any zoning, and so
Pre-zoning.
there's no,
Okay, okay, that's all I wanted
rules
to
or
know.
regulations from
Thank
the
you.
county
Okay,
standpoint.
thank you.
Anybody else care to speak on this subject? Come on up, sir. State your name. Give you 3 minutes. Welcome.
My name is Robert Frang. I'm 72 years old. I've lived here my whole life. My grandmother was in Mission Hill, where the septic or their pumping system is now. She lived on that house right there next to the creek. So I've been there for my whole life. And I would have a question. There was a big spill this spring, they pumped. Mission Hill pumped millions of gallons right into the creek. It was supposed to be documented and taken, and I've never heard the results of that. They seem to they don't get it done, or they haven't come up with those figures or anything. And I happen to have been driving by Ray Epps' farm and looking at toilet paper and feminine hygiene products that were floating in that water that was going right next to his house when I was helping him sandbag it. So I would like to know how much, do they have test wells? Do they have things in Mission Hill to take on what they have been dumping out on the farmers for miles? And it is just ridiculous. In the paper, it says that Mission Hill needs to dump 3 million gallons out of their lagoon, dump it over the hill down on J Cuts is what they wanted to do. Now, I don't know if they've gotten that done. Has that been done? Or are they still talking about it? And it's never been recorded, and I would like to know. I think the county should demand that, because every CAFO has to have wells, test wells, and I think Mission Hill needs the test wells also. So we can do it, because that goes right down into the Jim River if you dump it over. And that's where the Jim River is running right by Mission Hill. It doesn't do it very often, but it has done it now. And that's where they want to dump their lagoon. 3 million gallons. That's more than probably Ray has had in his hogs in his lifetime. But they just did that, that's just to get it down. And they already dumped a bunch this spring. So that should be looked into too. I think it's very important to look into. Thank you.
Question.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
When you talked about sandbagging at Ray's, was that previous flood occurrence or was that this last one?
Both, but that was in March.
That was in March when you saw the
Yeah, that's when the
toilet paper.
the refuge, human refuse came down. And now, last week I didn't see it because that came in from the gym, so that didn't come from Mission Hill. What we were trying to do, he's got hay in his hay shed. He got a little hay done, and that is sitting in the 8 inches of water. And that's hard to get good hay this year, and that was his good hay. And I feel very sorry for that. I mean, there was nothing we could do to do it.
I think DENR is the one who regulates the Mission Hill, so you ask them to look into that.
Okay, where do we get a hold of them? In Pier then, or locally?
I will try to give them a call.
Okay, that would be very nice. Thank you.
I do believe it's part of their.
Any other
And
questions?
it's very important because there were huge area, acres, hundreds of acres that had this on it, and it was disgusting.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this topic? Come on up, sir. State your name. I'll give you 3 minutes.
Louis Johnson, Vollen. The only thing I have to add to what Buddy said is the fact that when they pumped the raw sewage out, okay, their back was against the wall. I understand it. But everybody, if you haul manure, you gotta call all your neighbors. And I don't care how far out you got, somebody will be mad because they didn't get called. But Mission Hill never called anybody, and there is a bunch of people down in that area that have shallow wells. And anybody that has worked with sewage systems, the leftover medication in human waste is tremendous. So, who knows whether you were getting birth control pills or Viagra when you went out to the wells to get a drink of water, But why is it they're not required to notify people, hey, you may want to drink water, bottled water, or you may want to have your water tested? Because we don't know where it's going to go because it's all sand out there. Anyway, that was it.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up. State your name for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes, sir. Welcome.
My name is Josh Johnson, 30443-446 Avenue, Vollen. I'm Louis Johnson's son. I run the nursery at his place. I run the finisher at Jay Cutt's place. I used to work in 2 of Carl Shank's barns. Normally I do my chores in the morning. Get it done before it gets hot out. Today this meeting's coming up and the odor is a big problem. Everybody thinks. So instead of doing it after I drop my boys off daycare, I waited till about 5 o'clock at night and then went and did my chores. You can see my clothes are dirty from working all day, and then I did the chores. If anyone wants to smell how bad it is, come right on up. If you want, I got a new, excuse me, I got a new regional man tomorrow, so I'm probably be in the barns for 3 hours tomorrow. So if anybody wants to come and watch, make sure I'm not trying to hide out or do anything, they can sit outside the barn and wait for me to come out, and go to the next barn and wait for me to come out, and see how bad it smells. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this topic? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice, all right.
Commissioner?
Yes.
I just have a comment and an example to set up here. I need Mr. Dolish. Would you come back up to the mic, please? You don't? I'm not going to quiz you or anything. I'm going to use some of the lawyer talk over here. And everything I'm going to say here is about, and don't be splitting the hairs and trying to micromanage me like LBJ did with the war. Anyway, where do you get the smell? Where does the smell come from? What's it come from? It comes from the hog CAFO, right?
Yeah,
it comes from hog manure, right?
Yep.
Well, I got a thing here that I've been searching. 180-pound pig hog, produces about 11 pounds of liquid poop a day. So this is about, okay? 11 pounds, 5 pounds, 5 pounds. Give you a benefit of the doubt for
You making us pancakes, Gary?
making an example here. I need a little bit of reference. You got 2,400 head in there. How much does a human poop every day?
Not that much.
They poop a quarter pound, McDonald's quarter pounder. How many people in your family?
2.
2. So you poop about a half a pound a day, you and your wife.
Nah, I'd probably do half.
Okay, well, it's just, everything's about here now. Just about. I know some days I overeat too, you know. Okay, you and your wife put out about a half a pound a day. Each hog puts out about 10, 11 pounds a day, times 2,400, right?
Yep.
That's a lot of poop, isn't it?
It is.
It's just what I wanted to make an example here.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anything else from any of the other commissioners? And Commissioner Loesch, you're going to check up on the Mission Hill, correct? Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to the next item. Next item on the agenda, item number 15, update on zoning enforcement. Mr. McGinnis, you want to give us an update, please?
Since the last meeting, there has been no movement. I went on my first vacation for a week, and then I've been at conferences for the last 4 days, so I haven't been in the office in a week and a half, so I haven't been there since the last meeting. Rob and I need to get together and decide our final action of enforcement, so we're basically at the same point we were 2 weeks ago.
Do you have all the information that you need, the feedback, or are you still waiting on some?
I don't think there's any, not that I know, Brad, it's up to you.
I think we have everything on Gunderson, we have everything on Shank, we have everything on, let me think. We might be needing another round from one to make a decision. But it's kind of one and done. If they didn't make it this time, then I'll make a decision and it'll come to you on appeal, more than likely. So,
Have you rendered any decisions on any of those that you've had?
not on a CAFO, no. And I need to, and I want to. So get together and get those done.
When can we expect that? I mean, these have been a couple, what, July? July, some of these? I mean,
Well, when Rob and I get together and decide what we legally can do, it'll be done.
all right. Planning on putting this on the agenda for moving forward, so we'll get an update each meeting on these. I believe we should also put a posting in the newspaper on section 2303 for penalties, similar to how we did for this fall coming in, just so that everybody is aware of what there are penalties, correct? Have we had any of those printed in the newspaper as a posting?
2303, is that the class 2 misdemeanor language?
No, the owner, agent of a building permit or premises upon which a violation has been committed, and it goes in, it talks about any architect, engineer, or building contractor who commits, participates in, or maintains such a violation of what they may be found guilty of. Have you?
No, that section, as far as under my tenure, that has not been published in the paper, no.
Do you think we need to do that as a board or not?
I don't see a reason for it, but if
Well,
other
if
people
nobody-
feel that way, it's fine.
Anybody else, Joe? Do you think we need to have that, or?
I think that was in the letter, if I remember right.
Okay. All right.
I think it referenced 2303.
It does, but he asked if we've published
Well, yeah,
it.
is that something that
What
you
I'm
think
saying
we
is the
should do?
people that
Okay.
the people that it would affect should be aware, I guess, except for, contractors and whatnot might not be aware, but the applicants are aware, I guess. So I could go either way, whatever.
Okay. Well, I think we should either, if we're gonna do it, we should do it, and if we're not, what do you think, Gary, Don? What do you think? Should we put some sort of release in the newspaper on that? No?
I think it's
Have-
fine if you do, everybody's been warned.
And have we made any changes to the section since it was originally written?
I don't believe so.
So we've had this zoning ordinance for how many years?
Since 2001, we adopted the temporary December of 2001, and then regular 2003, and none of this, that's the original language I had written in there.
Okay, so it's been law essentially for that length of time. I guess that's how I look at it.
Okay.
There's no change, and for me, if you go and publish it, folks are gonna say, okay, what changed? But nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
That would be my caution.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I could.
So anything else on this update? I think we'll have this, until these get resolved, we'll have this on the agenda every meeting to get an update. So anything else from any of the commissioners? Brian or Rob, did you have anything else on this? Thank you. All right, moving on. Item number 16, zoning ordinance discussion, land use direction for the planning commission. Joe, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, we kind of talked a little bit last time, I guess. Sitting on the planning and zoning, we're talking about different ordinance, changes that may need to happen and why, and we kind of, we went down the path of accessory structures to start with due to the number of variances that were given, and then afterwards it was kind of, now what should we work on? And so I'd like to come up with some sort of a formula, call it, for when we make changes and why. And things that come to my mind is, and I guess goals and direction for changes, and not specific articles, but for instance, when I'm looking at changes, my goals are to make permitting the process easier for applicants. So if there's some way to put the requirements in a easier format, not to lighten requirements, but to maybe put them in where it's it speeds up the process, I guess, or makes it easier. It makes decisions from planning and zoning more black and white, more clear ways to move forward, or potentially get rid of, if we can take something with the CUP, let's say, and say, we can easily identify these things that have to happen, and it should be a building permit now, and remove a CUP. So, ease of use for the citizens would be, one of mine. Can we reduce variances would be another, reason.
Okay.
Is there ambiguous language that needs to be cleared up that has high potential of getting us into legal trouble would be one thing. And
Comprehensive plan, things like that.
comprehensive plan, but one probably, is this ordinance, do we really feel it's outdated? And I kind of point towards wind on that one. We're, far behind, and
Wind and internet.
And internet,
Or
and,
towers,
we
yeah.
know we need to address those. So I guess I'm just curious what other people's thoughts are. I'd like to be able to, when we're looking at a change, be able to say, are we hitting any of these things when we're doing this? Just to more focus how we're directing our changes and what we're gonna change next, and, instead of just kind of, well, what should we change today, and then go with it. And then when we're making changes, keep things like that in mind, I guess, would be that.
All right, Don, Gary, what do you got on that? You spent some time on the planning commission, Don. Is there some areas you'd like to see some changes?
I think we need just to continue to emphasize get the changes in print and access to the public, instead of prolonging it. Lots of things get laid back 2, 3, 4 months or longer. And there really isn't a reason for that. It's a good reason.
Got it. Gary, do you have something on this one? Sherry?
Yeah.
Skipped over you, sorry.
You know, going through, we have a couple ways to approach this. We have how many articles in the ordinance? 25, something like that. You know, so you can approach it, do you do an article at a time and do you rate those? This is our most at-risk article, let's start here, let's update the article, let's pass the article, and then move to the next most at-risk article. Or do you change one paragraph, get that all through the process, change a couple words here, and go through the process? I guess my concern is if you take an article and you change one part of it, and then you say in a couple months, well, we decided we're going to change another part, but it affects what you just changed, it's not a very comprehensive review, and you find yourself in this circle of change. So my advice would be to pick an at-risk article, one that we feel needs the most changes or the most quickly done changes, if you will. Maybe that's wind, maybe it's internet, maybe it's ag. But to do it in a comprehensive form, front to back. And I have a huge concern about all the definitions that take up almost half of our printed. I think a lot of the definitions themselves are outdated as well. So that may be one section you just go through and you read the 1,000 definitions and update them. So that would be my advice to take back to the Planning Commission. Because sometimes when you're weeding in the garden, you're not stepping back and looking at the whole picture. So and I agree, wind and internet and ag are probably the 3 right now that have the most discussion around them.
You know, and there's certainly something that said, you know, I think some of the more controversial subjects probably we would like to tackle, and maybe not tackle, but we have to, you know, but probably needs to be addressed. And part of what I'm looking at as far as gathering a focused approach and what the board wants to see is, does that take priority over anything else, or, you know, how are we prioritizing and where are we going, I guess.
You know, and maybe that's one of your special meetings for the Planning Commission, is you sit down and everybody should have read the zoning ordinance. If you're the person at that meeting, you should have read it and identified your concerns, and to go through and rank them, and then to start grouping them together.
And one thing that was interesting at the state convention that we attended is that some counties have joint county commission, zoning commission meetings when they're going to discuss and talk about bigger changes. And that, as far as I know, hasn't happened, but I don't see why that couldn't happen, and it may be a good thing if we think it would just get us all in the same room. And I don't think we're going to sit down and go through articles, but I think we could give our guidance on what we want to see, and then give the Planning Commission their top 1, 2, or 3 and let them have at it, if that's something we want to look into.
We should certainly be setting the priority, because there's no sense them wasting their time and they come before us and we say, well, that's not what we wanted.
Exactly. So, all right, that sounds good. Anything else you wanted to cover on that, Joe?
No,
You
I think,
good?
I mean, does that seem reasonable though, that, you know,
Yeah.
things to keep in mind? What I'd like to do is, even a year from now or 2 years from now, when someone says we want this ordinance changed, we can look at something and say, why? Is it minimizing variances? Is it minimizing potential for
Conflicts
lawsuits?
and-
Is it
yeah,
simply
conflicts.
outdated? You know, we need a reason why we're changing things, I
Well,
guess.
would everybody be on board to have a joint meeting between the two boards where maybe it's an hour, and when we just all sit down and work, give them our guidance, and is that something that we think would be valuable or not?
Yes, as long as we go into the meeting prepared to
Okay.
start talking about it at minute
Okay.
one.
Okay.
I
Sounds good.
I can only foresee if you just walk in and say, well, how are we gonna start? It's gonna be a 3 or 4 hour meeting.
We need a
No.
the
Well, we
topic,
need-
and it needs to be
okay.
focused and driven.
Well,
I
how
guess.
about this? How about the guidance come from us? Why don't we each pick our top 3 topics that we think is important? Okay, and then at the next meeting, we'll break that down into a certain number, maybe a top 5, and we'll do our research, and we'll have the planning commission do their research, and then we'll have a short meeting joint meeting where we can get them together, give them direction, and have them work.
Sounds
Sound like a
good.
plan?
It does.
So that can be on the next meeting. Everybody has homework now.
So basically,
Each of us gets 3.
identify top
Yep.
3
Top 3 for you.
things, and here
Yes.
we want,
Send
or,
us another email with it.
Yeah. And then we should also have our top 3. We should also put there when we would like to see it, a deadline. And I think we need to take a somewhat aggressive tone, at least on some of these. So, sound like a plan?
and why.
And why, yes.
And
I don't
hopefully,
have enough room on my line for that.
hopefully they'll coincide
Yeah.
with our strategic plan.
Yeah. We haven't finalized that yet, so. Well, I mean, and really, we should be taking, I think we hit a lot of what our strategic plan is, and that,
That's right.
just like you're saying, should be filtering down into this ordinance, so that's a good point.
And we'll need to check with you, Dan, so that we don't double up and
Well, you know what, if Don and I have the top 3 same ones, and, you know, we might all have this top 1 or 2, and then there's a few difference, and I think just us, we agree on 5, right? That's kind of what Don, had mentioned, and Greg, 5, and then we move for those 5 and get them done and move on. Sound like a plan, everybody?
That sounds
All right, next meeting, do your homework. All right, anything else on that?
Nope, thanks.
All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 17, commercial building permit fee discussion, Mr. Kettering.
Okay, I brought this up last meeting. As you look back in the minutes, you'll see that I was the one that made the motion to pass
Sure.
the previous fee schedule.
Sure.
But in further retrospect and thought on it, I was wondering if we were really doing the right thing to enhance economic development in the county. And so I thought about the ethanol, possibility of ethanol plants being built out at Napa Junction.
Sure,
And maybe whatever else that they're talking about, being $150 million project. And, we would be charging a pretty hefty fee for that. So what I did was, pass these out. I contacted Minnehaha, Lincoln, Union, Brown County, Godwin County, Davidson County, Sioux County, Iowa, and got their zoning fees for commercial. And I brought those for you guys just to look at. Next week, next meeting, I'll bring a comparison of each one of those on that $150 million project. And you then can compare what each of those counties would charge for a fee. And it appears that the more densely populated the community or the county is, the higher the fee. And Minnehaha and Lincoln County being 2 of the highest. And that's probably because they have a lot of the infrastructure. Nobody goes to Minnehaha County and has a big worry about whether they get natural gas. They've got the roads, they got the infrastructure to do it, so they can charge a lot higher fee. If a company's come looking at Yankton County and they're looking at a $1 million or $1.5 million fee, and they can go to the neighbors and not have to worry about any other infrastructure issue, they're decisions get pretty easy. So what I'd like you to do is look through those, and then next week, next meeting, I'll bring you the comparisons, and we can discuss what we think might be appropriate if we wanted to make a change.
Are you talking just building permit fees, or are you talking
Just-
conditional use and all those other ones as well?
Just building.
Okay.
Just building.
Yeah, you know, in Brown County, when I talk to them, you know, theirs is $3 per valuation, and, you know, some of these other counties, I know Union County, I talked to some of their commissioners this weekend, and a lot of them feel that their fees are too low. So each county is different, I know that. We also don't get humongous projects every single year either, you know.
No.
Maybe there's something maybe there's something that we could do, that we could incentivize these, because any structure that's built, you know, also gets the discretionary tax, where we don't, you know, we're not getting taxed on that. And when we do have these big permits come through, there's a lot of work through the zoning and planning office that we have, sometimes months. And,
Well,
you know, on some of these,
not a whole lot.
well, it could be a lot of work if we're
It
gonna
could
get
be.
something. Yeah, I see.
Not necessarily.
Well, yeah, but it's a good point too, though, when we, you know, what's the good of economic growth if the county doesn't benefit? We get these areas that are TIFed, and then they have the discretionary formula, and we don't get any increased taxes for 20 years. Is it really benefiting us at the county?
Well, when we raised those fees
Yeah.
here not too long
Sure.
ago, it had been like, what, 15 years
15
before,
years,
since they'd been raised, so,
Mm-hmm.
so now we're talking about dropping them already, you know, nobody may raise them again for
Yeah.
10, 15 years, so I don't know if,
I
why we
was-
want to start dropping them.
I was told there was one guy who came in and said the permit fee was too high, and his bill was $65, and he said he wasn't gonna pay that. So that's the only one I'm aware of. But if that's something we wanna look at, what do you guys, do you wanna look at it?
I, you know, put a comparison and
Do we wanna give it a chance to work, or do we wanna change it right away?
I remember the first vote we took on this was 3-2, so I'd say the commissioners are probably pretty split
Okay.
on some of the levels that were assigned, so I'm very open to a second discussion.
Do we wanna discuss that now, or do we wanna discuss it at the next meeting?
Oh, next meeting for
I'd
sure.
like to have you
not
see the
tonight.
comparison, because it makes it, it really clearly divides it into two groups.
Okay. I guess we'll put that on the agenda for next meeting then. Is there anything else you want to talk about on that? Good. All right. Anyone want to speak on this?
Are there any written there? Oh, just you, okay, sorry.
All right, next item on the agenda, public comment. Come on up, sir. State your name, and we'll give you 3 minutes as soon as I get this pulled up. Welcome.
Jay Cutts, 44681 309th Street. I guess I want to try to clarify some misinformation you guys have heard tonight. I've fed hogs, delivered feed to hogs, ground feed for hogs as an elevator operator for 40 years. And a 180-pound pig eats 4 to 5 pounds a day of feed. So there's no way he can poop 11 pounds a day. So, Gary, when you're looking for information, come to somebody that's fed hogs before. Thank you very much.
Anyone else care to make a public comment? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. Closing public comment. Commissioner updates. Gary, do you got anything for updates?
Talk about the trip to DC a little bit?
Sure. Just a couple minutes, yeah. So.
Okay. All of the commissioners in the country got invited several months ago. Only 3 of us from South Dakota were there. They took 10 states at a time. I was in Washington, D.C. Pence was there. Sonny Perdue was there. The drug czar woman was there. Social Security, Selective Service, a wealth of information I gained from it. And I'm just going to abbreviate what I can. After the meeting, I cornered 3 individuals, one from the Department of the Interior. She had been a county commissioner years ago. I told her about this $25,000 fine on this milk truck, and that money went to the state. She said the exact same thing happened to us. She said, Gary, I'm going to try to get a grant for a bridge, after I told her that some of our bridges are 1939 at my Marindal Dam. She says, he looked me right in the face and said, I'm going to try to get you bridge money. She said, there's got to be a rat hole someplace where there's bridge money. That's what she said to me. The guy that put the program on, I've got a direct communication with him, and that's what this was set up, so that the White House could communicate directly with county commissioners and cut out the representative, the senators, and the pork that they add to it, and the years of trying to get something. So if we need a bridge, a road, a truck, if there's money for it, we can request it, and if they've got it, and we can get it. Now, my mother taught me some really good guilt trips. I talked about the bridges we've been welding on for 2 years. I told him about the trouble we've had, the flooding. So he said, you just feed me this information. Now all of a sudden I get home and there's a flood. Well, this guy, when he got his emails on Monday, he had a ton of stuff, pictures, articles out of the paper, my photos, my stories, individual stories. Then he sent me this email, and this guy this was the Northwest Regional White House Conference in the White House, right in the next building to it. This guy's name is James Aiken. He's the Associate Director of the White House Office of Internal Governmental Affairs. Monday morning I got this. It says, good morning, Commissioner Swenson. Thank you for sending all that information, all those pictures. It really helps us provide an idea of the situation on the ground there. I will send this to the appropriate people and see what we can do to help Yankton County. Any further information, just keep sending it. The more that there's there, the more ammunition I have to try to get help specifically for Yankton County, it says here. Not the state of South Dakota, Yankton County. And when I told those people of our dire situation, 23,000 people, 80 bridges, and a farming community that's got, what, half of the fields planted? They didn't know that the Missouri River ran through here until I sent them a map of the Pick Sloan project. We thought it was just a river you had problem with. And that, well, where does that go? That dumps into the Missouri. And I'm Mr. Detail. And my wife tells me, she's a mental health therapist with a master's, she said, Gary, you know, you're just like a police dog. You bite somebody in the leg and you don't let go until they get you something out of them. And I said, honey, I've never bitten anybody in the leg. But I said, the day ain't over yet.
Thanks, Gary.
Anyway,
appreciate it.
I did my best. I even told the one official, I said, if I have to beg on my hands and knees for Yankton County, I'll do it right here. No, Gary, we'll get you something. We'll do something for your county. Well, now with all this flooding, like I said, they haven't told me to stop sending it, because he said right here in this email.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Don, do you got anything?
Just mention that you and I attended the Lewis and Clark Behavioral Health Annual Meeting today. They've had an exceptionally good year and
very good meeting.
Served an additional number of people.
And you're on that board, are you not, Don?
Yes.
Yeah, so Don's on there. There's a lot of great information, and I think we have so many people who in Yankton who care about that, and you know, profoundly, and it was great. So, Joe, anything for updates?
Just the conference we attended was well attended by the state. It was some good information had there and good networking, and so took home a few things.
Sherry?
Yes. Tomorrow night at Stockman's on East Highway 50 at 7 p.m., the commissioners have been invited to speak at the farm forum. So if anybody's interested, East Highway 50, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Monday, we have a road task force meeting in this room at 7 p.m. It's an open meeting. Last time we were over at Gayville, so we've been to Mayfield, Lesterville, and Gayville. So now we're back in this room to kind of circle and see where our next step is going to be. And then Tuesday, just a little plug for Mount Marty, I have been invited again to come and speak at the Women in Science. So they get area girls, I think they're all middle school girls, they come and they listen to engineers, nurses, biologists, all kinds of field. And it's pretty fun. I sure enjoy it because I was a teacher one time. So it's kind of my element to get back in and speak to them. So they offer that service for our area schools all the way from the reservation, Nebraska, South Dakota, and it's a really fun event. So that I thank them for putting it on.
Sherry, on the meeting for tomorrow night at Stockman's, there's only 2 commissioners going.
Yeah, I regrettably am not able to attend that.
You're not expecting everybody to come.
No.
You can
but-
sit, if you want to take my place. I had just had something come up where I'm not able to do that. The floodwater has gone down on our place, and I have some things that I need to remove. And then my wife and I have been planning a trip for quite some time, and we have a very early flight so I'm not going to be able to make it.
7 o'clock. 2 of us can go, and I'm one of them.
So if you want to take my place, Don, I'd appreciate that very much.
Then I don't have to sit there by myself. Thank you.
So, and another thing is that I was the delegate for the Association of County Commissions, and we passed some resolutions for the county commission on getting a 1/2-cent sales tax for the state, and then we changed 2 policy statements to increase funding for mental health as well. So, anything else from any other?
There's a hot wash from the spring flood tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is anybody attending that?
I think somebody needs to. I won't be able to if.
I don't remember what time it is.
It's 1.
1 o'clock?
I think it's 1.
Okay.
It's like a review. A review of
what we did right, what we did
What
wrong.
went well, what didn't go well at the...
We call AARs in the Army.
It's for the March
after
event,
action.
right?
Yeah, it's for the March event, so I believe we'll have city representation.
Townships.
Townships will be there. Paul, of course, and company will be there,
Yeah.
so
Who wants to go, who wants to do that, or who's able to do that?
I probably can. I was hoping to be able to anyway, so I'll commit to that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda, executive session to litigation pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law, Section 1-25-2, subparagraph 3. Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now in executive session. Thank you, everybody. Entertain a motion, go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Back in regular session. No action will be taken as a result of executive session. Any new items for next meeting? I know we had some discussion on fees and update on zoning enforcement. Anything else? Make sure you guys all have homework for planning and zoning. 3 items that are your priorities. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, everybody.